So I started playing soccer when I was 8 and never really had any goalkeeper training. I was just pretty athletic. I come from a single parent home, so my mom didn't have a lot of resources to take me hours and hours away to get training on a consistent basis. And I got recruited by 2 colleges, and that was the first time I really had consistent goalkeeper training. And I was really fortunate to have a coach who empowered me, and equipped me with the tools that I needed to succeed. And once I had that, my career really took off. Played pro for 7 years on the national team, Olympics, World Cups, all that. And I realized when I was still playing that, like, there was more for me and that I wanted to give back to the next generation. So I started the Keeper Institute with the vision of a goalkeeper community and really wanting to change the landscape of goalkeeping in New Jersey, but mainly across the country, influencing different coaches and the way people think about the position. And so this is our 10th year that we've been established, and we're on our second facility, and we work with goalkeepers from ages 8 to professional, and a major influence in the NWSL, working with some of the best goalkeepers in the world. So I started commentating right after I got done playing. Someone asked me if I wanted to be on the broadcast team for the Philadelphia Union, and I said, that scares the crap out of me, so I guess I'll do it. Um, I'm not used to the camera. It made me super nervous, so I wanted to do something to continue to stretch myself, and that rolled into working in the SEC network for ESPN, and now working for the NWSL.
Amazing. I mean, maybe you could just dive in a little bit more about the Keeper Institute. And we were talking before we started recording that, of course, you use Spiideo as well, or you have access to Spiideo now. How is video used for keepers, and how have you seen it evolve over the years?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think that, first of all, goalkeeper is probably the most misunderstood position on the field, probably undervalued given the least amount of resources. And so I felt like, when I was growing up, that my journey and my career and my understanding of the game was just really left to myself and trying to figure that out. And no other position on the field is having to deal with those same circumstances. So we try to understand the game at the highest level in the world, and then be able to break that down into small principles for goalkeepers, not like rules, just here are some ideas and different things, some principles that you can make your decisions based off. And Spiideo gives us the opportunity to show players what we're seeing and ask questions and check for understanding. So maybe we're working on protecting the space behind the back line. Now with Spiideo, I can show them where the ball is, maybe if it's in their attacking third, and I can show them the positioning, the vertical positioning of what the goalkeeper looks like, what their starting position looks like, what they're looking for when they turn their head to scan to see information, what's their stance look like based on the ball and the player on the ball's body shape. So it is an incredible tool, because a lot of young players, they hear and they want to try, but they can learn when they see things, and they get the opportunity to watch different goalkeepers who might do it different ways.
Well, what was it like when you were playing in terms of video and resources? And you mentioned that the keeper might not always get the most attention on the team, but what was it like when you were a player?
I mean, when I was in college, I'm dating myself here, but we were like watching video by scrubbing, on a DVD. Like, we did video from DVDs and like even like VHS tapes right in the beginning of my college career. We then progressed to DVDs, where we would just scrub. The coach would say, all right, go to minute 9:08, and the coach would scrub to 9:08. And rarely did we ever watch goalkeeper film. It was more team tactics. And so I really didn't get into watching more specific film until I played on the national team. And even then, it was limited in terms of what you could watch from the league. It was more, we're watching videos from training and how to make adjustments in training. But the sport has evolved so much. Research, study, film has just completely changed the way that we are able to, watch. I can watch De Gea any time of the day. I can watch Kalen Sheridan any time of the day, and be able to come up with different ideas that might help serve the athletes that I get to work with.
Deli,
Jillian,
yeah, I've asked about three in a row. So Deli, over to you.
sorry. I was going to say, when you mentioned VHS, I mean, I played back in 2000. I feel like you must be younger than me. But was the training also uh, very generalized back then? Like, because I think now, even by positions on the field, including goalkeeper, like obviously the more we know about physiology and different things, like, and the types of training, but was it the same thing for you back then, where it was just kind of like you just had to run with the team and do all the same stuff, or when you were playing at a high level, was it kind of position specific?
So when I was growing up with the club, I did everything that a field player would do. I would do small sided, I would do passing patterns, dribbling, all those things. And then when I got to college, when I had my first goalkeeper coach, we did have segmented time to ourselves where we had our own training. We'd go out early or stay later, but even training has evolved so much in the last 10 or 15 years. 10 years ago, I was moving over cones and catching and doing a lot of fundamentals, I guess you would say, and perfecting that, even at the highest level in the world, where now we understand teaching differently. And we've done at the Keeper Institute a massive deep dive on how people learn and have translated that to our training. So we use a bit more of an ecological dynamics framework to teach, which is vastly different than, your, I guess, historically blocked practices where everything is announced and you know exactly what's going to happen. We kind of utilize different ways for players to explore and experiment on their own. And what's important about that is that we have an idea of what the principles are, and we have an idea of what we're looking to get out of it, the intended outcomes. And we get to design a session that will be able to allow for players to experiment and find different ways to solve different problems, because the environment is always changing. And through Spiideo, we actually get to show the goalkeepers, how alive the game is and how often it changes. And now we get to show players, instead of just saying, hey, you got to scan for where pressure, space, and options are, we get to see on Spiideo Kaylin Sheridan's head turn 4 to 5 times to pre-scan before she receives the ball. Before, we couldn't do that because we were just watching film on YouTube where the goalkeeper wasn't even involved. So now, we get to be able to share that kind of information with players, and, you know, they get to see it. Okay, 4 or 5 times. Wow, I never even thought I should scan that often. And now they're able to figure out when and how to do that themselves.
I actually wanted to, because we'll post this as a video as well. But I actually wanted to share this photo that you posted on your Instagram the other day. It's obviously humorous because you can see everyone pointing back to the keeper, and
Right.
you wrote when your teammates trust you.
Yeah.
But how does like an angle like this, like being able to show the entire field and visualize it with the keeper, is that really like the most important part of reviewing film? And how does it like drill it into the keepers that you work with, that like, here's the formation, look at your teammates pointing back at you. I just kind of wanted you to walk through this photo that you posted, and how you would use it in your job.
Yeah, it is a humorous photo. I get to work with Kaylin Sheridan, who, in my opinion, is the best goalkeeper in the world. And last year, she connected and attempted the most passes in the NWSL and over the greatest distance. So she's not hitting 40-yard balls, just launching them for 50-50 balls. She's hitting 40-yard balls with an intended outcome of getting the ball to Taylor Korniak in between the lines. And now in one frame, you can see that entire picture, and you can see all of her options when she receives the ball. So another feature I love is you can measure the distance between where pressure is and where she is. So you can ask the question, is this really pressure? Because at the youth level, one thing that we see a lot is, oh, I feel pressure, just kick it long, or like, when in doubt, kick it out, right? But they're not necessarily under that much pressure. They're just feeling the pressure. They're not actually seeing where the pressure is. They're not actually seeing where the space is. Or in a photo like this, you could see all the space to Kaylin's left hand side. So if she wanted to even change her angle of support to give her more time away from the opponent, she could if she wanted to. You can see how far she's distributing the ball by using the measure tool. You can see how many different options or ways that she can manipulate the opponent to move one way and exploit the space the other way. So pictures like this are incredibly important. And even the camera that's behind the goal gives us a better view of what the goalkeeper is actually seeing, because this is like a luxury view from a bird's eye, like seeing the entire thing. But when you see the goal, the camera from behind, that gives you a better indication of what they're seeing and when they're looking to see that information.
Do you think if you kind of break down, you've got if we look at it maybe like as a youth, high school level, college level, and then professional, what are there's kind of maybe just small differences to like make that next jump. So are you teaching, like, is it typically more of the tactical side, or is it the technical? And the other component too for a goalkeeper is probably just the mental side, because you are literally on the line. It's like any mistake is magnified. So do you have kind of a set way of like approaching those?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So our methodology is we have like 3 key components to maximizing development. So we get a certain amount of time with each goalkeeper per week. We want to maximize every single minute that we have with them. So we use 3 things. One is our session design. We want to create a session that's giving the goalkeeper tons of information, not me giving the information, but the exercise, the environment, and having the athletes interact with that environment as often as possible to see the pictures that are changing, and then they can make their own decision. So one, we want to create a session that's helping create problems and supporting them enough to help figure that out. Number 2 is our teaching methods. When do we interject? When do we give feedback? How do we give feedback? Do we give feedback to the whole group? Do we give it to one person? And then last, and the most important thing, to your point, the mental side, is we have to create an environment that's safe for players to fail. Because if we're hollering, yelling, why did you do that? Why wouldn't you just pass it out? Then we're creating a environment that's fear-based, and then we're not seeing that bravery, especially with young players, because they have to be brave to solve pressure. It's easy to just kick it out. They have to be brave and willing to make mistakes. So we try to recreate those environments as often as possible to not only evoke that bravery, but give them an opportunity to manage the mistakes so that they have more experience when it comes to the game when that happens, not if it happens.
I think I saw a question on your Instagram as well about building confidence in goalkeepers. So obviously, one side is not negative feedback constantly, but and to the mental part of the game, you obviously need to be pretty mentally strong to be a keeper because you are that last line of defense. Do you have a methodology for building up that confidence over time in short periods? How do you guys work with confidence?
Yeah, that's a good question. We actually have a coach on our team that is getting her PhD in psychology, so she would be able to better answer that question. But we try to give 3 pieces of, positive feedback to every 1 piece of negative feedback. We encourage bravery. We encourage we praise the intent over the outcome. So maybe it didn't work there, but the idea was really good. Like you closed to try to spread. It was a great idea, but your spread was just too late, so it went through your legs, right? We try to ask questions and empower them that they get to make autonomous decisions themselves. And hopefully through training, our goal is to expose them to as many environments and situations as possible, but also allow them to understand what their strengths are. Because I want to play more to my strengths, right? If I'm asking, a goalkeeper to play a super high line, be really proactive, but they're not really that comfortable with that, we're not going to see the best out of them. So maybe they're, more reactionary where they set back because their reactions are really quick. So we want to help expose what their strengths are and obviously continue to improve their areas that are a bit weaker. But we want to encourage them to play more to their strengths. And when you do that, you feel, that you're more effective. You feel more confident. You feel, more aware of how that you want to play the game, because there's so many different ways to play the game. Ederson plays it different than a De Gea, and one is not right or wrong. It's just what works best for them. So we want to help expose our young athletes so that they can play more to their strengths and ultimately be more effective and more confident.
I think that's a great point. And the other thing too is that every coach and team has their own style and chemistry, and you only need one coach to kind of see something in you to like make that kind of next jump. I was
Absolutely.
a target forward myself and was very specific. Like I was not versatile. I was just a big target forward that could hold the ball up and flick the ball on and score goals with my head. And there's a lot of teams that don't need that, but then you just need one kind of person to see something in you. So hopefully that's good for any aspiring goalkeeper, another player out there, that it's okay to play exactly to your strengths, like you said.
Yeah, and I think it's important too at a younger age that we create a broad experience for players because who knows, maybe if you had a different skill set at a younger age or were exposed to different things, you might have been more versatile when you get older. Like some of our goalkeepers get pegged as, you're not fast, so just stay on your line and drop for everything. But maybe if they were exposed to things like their starting position might have been different, their body shape might have been different. It might have made them a bit more versatile when they got older and understanding the game a bit different instead of just pegging them as just drop back for everything. So for us, like having a broad experience does help them understand who they are and where they want to improve and understand the game differently as well.
Do you think that goes for playing other sports too?
Yeah, we encourage all of our goalkeepers to play other sports at least until they're 14 and playing on the field as well to understand the game. But I would say that there are 2 or 3 things that I think young goalkeepers can really develop in, and the biggest one is athletically. Usually, the least athletic person on the team becomes the goalkeeper, where we need the best athletes being goalkeepers because they have to be able to manipulate their bodies in so many different ways. And developing that physical literacy at a younger age really does help recruit those muscles to be able to respond in a way that's more specific when they get older. So, playing other sports is incredibly helpful. Catching overhead. When we were young, we played in the streets, basketball, baseball. We were constantly catching over our head. Now, young people, young athletes are really struggling with that area of the game. And I think when you talk about some of the best athletes in the world, you talk about the things that they do that are so unexpected. Wow, I can't believe Michael Jordan took off from that far away for that dunk. Yeah, that I'm sure it has to do with some game awareness, but also just like his physical abilities to be able to take off from that far away for the dunk, right? Or just some of the most incredible saves. You're like, wow, how did they move their body like that so fast? And I think that stems from a strong physical foundation.
Do you think the multi-sport aspect of the United States has driven the keeper? Like, of course, if you look at least on the men's side, some of the best U.S. players of the last 20 years have been goalkeepers, from Tim Howard to Brad Friedel. Do you think that multi-sport kind of culture in the U.S. adds to producing better goalkeepers?
I think so. I mean, when you talk about the U.S. national team goalkeepers in general, you have Tim Howard from New Jersey, Tony Miola from New Jersey, Saskia Weber from New Jersey, Nicole Barnhart from Philly, Zach Steffen from Philly. I'm from South Jersey, Casey Murphy from North Jersey. There's a heavy influence in this area, and I think it's because we had to deal with winters as young players. So we had to play basketball, we had to play other indoor sports that maybe helped us develop that athleticism. But that's just a theory. I can't prove that.
Matt Turner's another one. I think
Yeah,
he was a
yeah,
late comer, and I think he's a New Jersey boy as well.
yeah. He didn't start playing goalkeeper, I think, until he was in high school or college, something like that.
Have you seen a lot of that at the Keeper Institute, where people from other sports, maybe who specialize in other sports, come in and want to try their hand at being a goalkeeper?
I think it's probably a little bit of an older generation that played more sports, and now the younger generation is being pegged into just playing soccer and just playing goalkeeper at a younger age. There's so much pressure to just, pick your position, pick your team, and pick your sport when you're 8. And we really don't encourage that. We want, well-rounded athletes, well-rounded people and individuals. And like, I love when people want to play goalkeeper. But what if that's not their best position? What if, they enjoy, don't know, gymnastics more? Or what if they're better at that? They need to be exposed to as many things as possible at younger ages.
The youth sports in the United States obviously has, like you said, become more and more specialized. But you guys do encourage everyone to play a different sport till they're 14. Obviously, that's intentional because you think it gives them added benefits and creates more well-rounded athletes and people.
Yeah, absolutely. And ultimately, the more athletic you are, the easier it is to be able to manipulate your body in different ways, to adjust different ways. You can be you're much more coachable, I guess you would say, because you can move your body in different ways. And that's something that I appreciate working with Kaylin Sheridan, because she played a bunch of different sports when she was younger. And now when you give her feedback, she like really understands her body. She feels every single little movement. And you can ask her, hey, can you adjust this? Or what would happen if you adjusted this? And she can do it on the next rep. And that's not something that everybody can do. And I really attribute that back to her playing so many different sports when she was younger. And just, she was big on playing outside by herself, kicking balls by herself, and just moving in different ways. Her balance, her coordination has made her into one of the best goalkeepers in the world.
At the elite level, and as you kind of ascend the ranks, you find that everybody's good. So what sets someone apart, being able to make a national team or make it as a professional? Like, what are the nuances at the goalkeeper level to kind of make that jump?
That's a really good question. I'm always going to say this answer, and other people will disagree, but I think the foundation of the best goalkeepers in the world are the ones who are the most mentally strong, and can deal with the pressure, because you are performing week in and week out, for the world to see, your mistakes, for the world to criticize you, for the world to sing you praise 1 minute and then say that you should be replaced the next minute. So I think mentally you have to have a really strong sense of what your identity is and why you play the sport. But besides that, I say the best goalkeepers in the world are the ones who have the best tactical acumen, understanding what their role is within the team and how to best play to their strengths. I also think that the goalkeeper position probably has evolved the most of any position in the last 10 years, becoming more of an 11th field player and 11th tacker, so a +1 advantage when your team has possession. So yes, when you say great goalkeeper, it's synonymous with good shot stopper. I think that those are just interchangeable words. But next level goalkeepers have the ideas in possession, can solve pressure, can manipulate pressure, can make key passes, can support the ball in different clever angles, communicate really well. And yeah, I would say the tactical acumen piece would just be the most important besides mental.
We've talked a lot about kind of on field and playing different sports and things like that. But I saw on the Keeper Institute website that you guys wrote that it's all encompassing, and that part of that is equipping young people with leadership skills, resiliency, and sportsmanship. How do kind of those off field things, off sport aspects of life kind of come into what you guys do at the Keeper Institute, and how do you uh, help these young kids, I guess, to acquire those skills?
So we're really lucky. We get to work with some really incredible athletes who will go on to play in World Cups and Olympics. But a majority of players that we work with, just want to play in high school or play in college, if they're lucky, play after that. But we realize that sport is an incredible vehicle to reveal character, that will be important for the rest of your life. So, my job is to help people understand who they are through sport. That's how I view coaching, and help develop them into the person and player that they ultimately really want to be. So, when I ask a player, hey, I'm going to pass you the ball and I'm going to press you and I'm going to do my best to try to win this ball from you, instead of just clearing it, I want you to try to figure out how to solve this and find an option to keep possession. And by doing that, I'm evoking them to be brave and try something that might be somewhat uncomfortable for them. And that same bravery can be used in the boardroom when you're presenting in front of, corporate America, or when you go to your boss and ask for a raise because you deserve it, or when you ask someone on a date, or when you tell your parents that, maybe you identify as something different. So that same bravery that we try to evoke in training is something that can carry with them for the rest of their life and can we hope will continue to move from, bravery to more bravery to more bravery, or more courage, or, more leadership abilities, or the way that you communicate to people, the way you treat people is a really important part of who we are. It's written in our mission. It's all over our walls. Who you are as a person is going to always be way more important to us than who you are as a player.
It's a great message. How do you handle as a coach when a goalkeeper does make a big error? Let's say it could be a big game, and and they do make like that kind of like mistake that's maybe lost a championship or lost a kind of a big moment. How do you handle that as a coach?
That's a good question. I think probably would differ from every individual that we work with. But immediately support, immediate show my face. Hey, I support you. I'm here with you. I know this is hard. Um, you know, we're going to deal with this in 24 hours. But in the meantime, right now, I'm just here to support you. I know this is really hard and that we're going to get through this. So immediately meet that mistake with support, because if you don't address it immediately, players leave the game and they're like, well, what's the coach thinking about me right now? Am I going to be replaced? Are they going to drop me? I'm terrible. They just go to these like really, really extreme negative places. So immediately after the game, I would say meet with support. And then, and a couple days later, maybe we watch film. Maybe we say, what did you see? Where was your attention? How did you feel in that moment? Did you feel anxious? Did you feel stressed? Because our bodies all interact with stress different. Like even for goalkeepers, when your body is stressed and you're anxious, you lose peripheral vision. So now you're seeing less of the field. So asking questions to try to understand what happened, what they saw, if they would do it again, what would they do different? And then asking like, how can I support you in this? Do you want more repetitions in this? Do you want to continue to work on this? Is it something that was a one-off situation, or do you really want to spend more time? To me, that's how I would meet the goalkeeper, because usually 99.9% of the time, the goalkeeper doesn't enter the game being like, "Oh, can't wait to mess up and lose the game for us today," right? So there's no need to get on the goalkeeper and, holler. They already know they messed up. So yeah, just a lot of support.
I have a quick question about broadcasting specifically, because at Spiideo, obviously, we have our performance analysis with Spiideo Perform that coaches and analysts and organizations use to improve performance. But on the other side, we have Spiideo Play, which is our broadcasting service that allows games that otherwise wouldn't be broadcast to be available for consumption, whether it's high school or even college, or specifically here in Europe, lower level teams. Have you seen a rise in like the availability of broadcasting for whether it's women's soccer or other leagues that maybe don't get as much coverage? Have you seen kind of a shift in that people want to consume this content, and we need to make it available?
I think it's incredibly important that it's made available to everyone, especially goalkeepers, because we're so often asked. We have this high expectation and standard of like perfection and don't let in goals, or else we're going to be looked at as the person that lost the game, right? So as high of expectations there are for goalkeepers, there also needs to be high support for goalkeepers. So being able to show a 12-year-old, hey, this was your starting position and why you couldn't protect the space in behind the back line, we can adjust, right? The ball's outside shooting range, so we can adjust and have you higher. Showing them those pictures, one, makes them feel like they're important. Like, hey, the coach like believes in my potential and like really is investing in me by showing me this and clipping this out for me, and it's helping me be the best that I can be. That feels really good as a goalkeeper, because quite often you're not shown that kind of attention. So one, they feel like you're invested in them. Two, they're equipped with the tools that, okay, yeah, I can do that. I see where you're saying the ball is in our attacking third, so you need me to be higher so that I can protect that space, or even deter the opponent from playing the ball in behind the back line. So I think that's incredibly important at any age, whether it's professional or details of a 12-year-old, and ways that they can continue to help support the game model and style of play.
Deli, any questions? Last questions from you? We've taken up a lot of
No,
Jill's
yeah,
time.
no, we appreciate
You're
it,
good.
Jules. One thing I was going to mention, because I know I work pretty closely with Jay from the Union, who's the first team analyst, and it sounds like that behind the goal view is that the one that you prefer to teach from, and like, do you have access to that for for most of the games at like the various levels?
So I think it's good to show both. So you can see what they're seeing. You can see when they turn their head. You can see their positioning based on defenders' bodies and attackers. And you can also look at it from a wider lens to see their vertical positioning. So I like to show both because I think both are valuable. And I think a lot of the clubs in the NWSL have that behind the camera. Not all of them, but most of them have behind the goal camera. So that's an incredible resource for us to be able to show different angles, whether the coach is seeing one thing, the players are seeing another thing. You can kind of check for understanding to see what the players are seeing and from their vantage point, because often we have an opinion, oh, they should have caught that. But then when you look from behind the goal cam, you can see that the goalkeeper picks it up late, and they have to make that decision to push it out because they didn't see the flight of the ball early enough, or their vision was occluded. So that's why they made that decision. So I think both angles are incredibly important, but really anytime you can show any film to a goalkeeper, that's going to be beneficial for them.
And then the last thing from me, Todd, was that feedback loop. Does it make a difference, like if they're seeing it live versus like an hour after practice versus the next day, or do you think like the time matters?
I think it's really difficult for a goalkeeper to be in the game and maybe halftime getting a lot of information, just because of the way your brain works. If you're thinking about things too much, it actually slows your body down. And so you kind of want to rely on your game instincts that you've trained over time to like just kick in. Because think about it. If I had to tell my body to dive, the ball would already be in the back of the net. So I can't think. I have to just rely on my instinct. So showing it after training, I think, or after games might be a bit more beneficial, unless it's something like really quick and simple that a goalkeeper could adjust based on the opponent. But when we give the goalkeeper too much information, they start thinking and things become very slowed down, and that it really doesn't help a goalkeeper perform their best when they're slower.
That makes sense.
Cool. Well, Jill, thanks for joining us. I want to just ask one last question. If maybe you could give us an update on the Jillian Loyden Foundation, and then if there's anything else at the Keeper Institute or the Start NWSL, anything you got going on.
Yeah, a lot of exciting things happening around here. The Jillian Loyden Foundation is just to bring awareness surrounding domestic violence. My sister passed away from domestic violence, so I share her story and her message, and hopefully inspire a lot of people to be brave and courageous, but also know some warning signs of domestic violence. So that's something that's always near and dear to my heart. It's been 11 years since she's passed away. With the Keeper Institute, we work 24/7, 365 days. It feels like a year, but our summertime is really, really busy. We've got our college camp coming up. We've got 3 select camps and some day camps for younger players. But we're just really, really, really interested and invested in helping any goalkeeper at any level take their next steps to feel more supported, to feel more equipped. And you can do that through individuals or group training or camps or clinics. And then commentating. The NWSL starts this week. I'm really excited. I think it's going to be a fantastic year. We've got some of the best players in the world, the best goalkeepers in the world, and it's going to be exciting because any day, anybody could win.
Amazing. Thanks, Jill.
Of course.